Oh, hi there, and welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. Happy Saturday on this beautiful Easter weekend. Had a gorgeous Good Friday yesterday, and a beautiful drive in to the studio this morning. A gorgeous full moon out for those of you up early enough to see that and enjoy it. And we are here. The law office is open, and we're here to talk about whatever you want to talk about today. So what do you want to talk about, Florida? Give us a call now, 877-943-9673. We're here to answer your legal questions, 877-943-9673. Go ahead and give us a call now. Kick off the show with that first call, and we will be happy to help you any way that we can. And as always, you can give us an email question if you prefer, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Lots of people taking advantage of the email option during the show throughout the week, and we encourage that as well. But again, we always like to talk to you live over the air, so 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of our show, 877-943-9673. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about child support. It was a topic that came up in my mind and my show prep during the week, and I thought it was one of those things where a lot of parties just sort of gloss over it and don't really know how it plays out, and kind of the basic concepts, and sort of a deep dive into all things child support, and where this really, the origin had 2 points kind of in the practice this week. One was in a presentation I was doing, which we'll talk about here later, and discussion of homestead law in general. So with regard to homestead law, there's provisions in there about protecting homestead property for minor children, making sure they have a place to stay, which is a good general policy. And the public policy behind child support is very similar. We think it's a good idea as a state that you make certain you are supporting your children. It doesn't seem like we would need a law for that, but we do. And we have laws on it. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights and some of the greater aspects of Florida child support. And most notably, starting off with what's child support used for. So child support is designed to go for basic needs, food, clothing, educational expenses, medical expenses, but also hobbies. So making sure that children have a well-rounded childhood, including, playing Little League Baseball, or taking tap and ballet classes, whatever they may be interested in. The basic concept of child support is making sure that these children have the financial means with which to have a childhood. So it's a pretty simple concept, and it's one that's codified in Florida statute 39.01 for those of you who like to look up the statutes. I know there is a group of you out there that love looking up the statutes during the show. So it's Florida statute 39.01 if you want to follow along with us today. But again, we're talking about Florida child support and the basic concept of supporting our children. And the first highlight is the fact that it's just going to support sort of those basic needs. So we'll talk a little bit more about child support here in a moment, but the phones are blowing up. Let's talk to Steve in Bradenton. Steve, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Hey, Steve. So you purchased the duplex and the parties were already subject to a lease in that duplex, or you purchased it and then leased it to them after the fact? I think you just answered your own question, Steve. I think you can have them evicted on 30 days notice, but I don't think you have to go that path. If they're, are they good renters? Do they pay the rent on time every month? Okay. Well, so Steve, if you take nothing away from this call, whenever you enter into the new agreement, whether it's with these tenants for an increased rate or just a new tenant altogether, I would recommend you, I strongly recommend you memorialize it with a lease. I think it's going to better protect everyone who's involved in the process. The short answer to your question, though, is you've answered your question. It's 30 days. And you can play nice by saying to them, look, I have this option. I don't want to do this option, but I will. And I would prefer just to agree on a new month-to-month rent if you want to keep it month-to-month. But again, my advice is try to get them to sign a new lease so that everything's agreed upon and all the terms are set forth. Well, I don't think you're closing the door on that option because you establish a lease. You could keep the lease month to month, but you better protect yourself if something goes sideways by putting a good attorney's fees clause, a venue clause. You can put a mediation clause in there, a security deposit. I mean, there's lots of things you can do to protect yourself in a lease and still keep it month to month, Steve. That's exactly the rationale, Steve. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The purpose of the lease is to sort of cover those contingencies. So there's no surprises for anyone. It's letting them know, hey, if Steve decides to sell this property, we're going to have 30 days, 60 days of notice, and Steve can sell this property. All right. Yeah, thank you for calling in, Steve. Have a happy Easter, okay? All righty. Thank you. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. Give us a call now. We're live and local. Happy to help any way we can. 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. We are live. We are local. Open phone lines. Get you and your question right on the air. 877-943-9673, or email me, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. Before we took Steve's call, we were talking about child support, some of the basic concepts, what child support goes for. Next on our child support agenda, how do you calculate it? So there are a couple of factors that go into calculating child support. The main factors are monthly income of the parents and the number of children the parents have together. Now, each parent's share is a product of dividing that parent's monthly income by the combined family income, and the court factors in how much time the parent has under the custody order. So when it comes to calculating child support, that's the typical methodology for calculating. So if you have a question about child support or any other legal topic, you can give us a call now, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. Email me, Patrick at attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, let's go to Sarasota and let's talk to Kevin. Kevin, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Sure, Kevin. How can we help? Yeah, Kevin, we don't have the best connection. I'm getting like every other word, but I think I've acquired the gist of your question. I want to follow up your question with a question. Are you currently represented by counsel on this matter? Yeah. So, Kevin, I'm sorry. I don't think we have a very good connection. So, I'm going to answer your question with the best answer I think I can give. It sounds to me like you already have counsel. And if you already have counsel representing you, Kevin, the best thing I can advise is go back to that attorney and have a sit down meeting with them expressing the exact concerns you just expressed. And if you don't feel comfortable doing a sit down meeting for some reason, put it in a letter and ask for a written response to your concern. I think that's the best thing I can say, given the fact that it sounds like you're represented by counsel at this time, Kevin. I wish I could do more, but there's some pretty clear rules on that, so I want to make sure that we follow them. So, Kevin, good luck to you nonetheless. 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of our program today. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. Again, your number to be part of the show today, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. We're discussing Florida child support law, Florida Statute 39.01 today, and we've been discussing sort of the general policy, public policy behind the idea, the concept of child support, how to calculate it. And the next topic, how long does child support last? Well, typically it lasts until age 18, but it can be extended until age 19, so long as the child is in high school. So a lot of people have questions about when does child support end. It typically ends at 18, but be aware it can be extended until age 19, so long as the child remains enrolled in high school. So there's your next point on child support. Give us a call, ask a question about child support or any other legal topic, 877-943-9673, or email patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Next, let's go to Lakeland and let's talk to Daryl. Daryl, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Good morning, Daryl. I can hear you just fine, Daryl. How's Polk County this morning? Yes, sir. Well, was there an employment contract or are you an at-will employee, Daryl? So I think you start there with the signed offer letter, and you look at that and you see you live by the four corners doctrine there. What did both parties agree to? And you see whether or not that 20% reduction violated the terms of that. Generally, they're not going to knowingly violate something like that, but they may have, and it's something that's worth a good consult with a labor law attorney, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with one if you give me a call at the office next week. But it sounds like you said they reduced the pay, then they brought it back, and there was no explanation for why they brought it back. But the explanation for the reduction was the pandemic. Is that correct? So yeah, I think it's a matter of giving a good consultation with a labor law attorney and looking at that offer that written offer you were given and seeing if the 20% reduction violates the terms. Did anybody file a formal objection to the 20% reduction at the time they implemented it? Daryl, you said a key point there that I want to follow up on. You said they offered everyone the opportunity to request not to have their pay reduced by 20%. Did you take advantage of that? Okay. So I think that, yeah, so what I would recommend you do before things grow fuzzy, I would go write what I call a Joe Friday version of the events, just the facts, ma'am, kind of the bullet points. So you have all that handy, and then we'll put you in touch with a labor law attorney next week that can walk you through those bullet points and that written offer you received, and then see whether or not that makes a good case against your employer. So I think that's the safest path to success for you. All right, Daryl, I'll give out the office line here in a little bit on the show, okay? All right. Yes, sir, Daryl. Have a happy Easter. Bye-bye. All right, you're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of our program today, 877-943-9673. Open phone lines. We'll get you and your call right on the air. You can also email me directly, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. You can email me directly during the show or during the week, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. We've been discussing child support between your calls this morning. And continuing in that vein, one of the common questions that comes up with child support is, what about retroactive child support? When do we retroact the child support to begin? And usually it happens beginning when the parents stopped residing together, but now under current law, it cannot exceed 24 months. So the current retroactive period capped at 24 months and generally begins when the parents end residing together. So that's the provision on retroactive child support. If you have a question, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, let's go to Bradenton and talk to Sharon. Sharon, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Happy to do it, Sharon. Happy Easter weekend to you. Your landlord's not named Steve, is he? Okay. I was just going to say, because I think we got the other side of this call at the start of the show, but Steve's situation, there was no lease, and you clearly mentioned that there was a lease in place. Right. Does the lease, I believe you, I can tell. Does the lease give your landlord the ability to sell during the period of your leasehold? Do you have a copy of your lease? Well, that was going to be kind of creepy if you just walked around with your lease on you. I meant, do you have access to a copy? Yeah, I always carry my lease with me. So, no. So if you have a copy of the lease, I'll give out the office number. Call me during the week. I'll take a look at the lease with you and just figure out what you've agreed to and whether or not the landlord has. Generally, when landlords prepare leases, they put provisions in there to allow them to sell, but they've got to follow the rules. So if there's a provision in there, they've got to stick to those rules, typically with regard to notice. They've got to give you a notice period regarding the sale. Then we default to whatever the lease says as far as termination of the lease. Now, the lease is almost certainly going to have a termination provision where it says that the landlord or the tenant can terminate the lease upon the following conditions. And there's a notice requirement. There may be some sort of payment or something that takes place, but there's almost certainly going to be a provision in that lease regarding termination, which is what I think that the landlord would do. If they don't have an option to sell with your leasehold intact, they would just terminate in order to effectuate the sale, is my best guess. But I cannot verify that. until Sharon, I've taken a look at that lease. But if you want to give me a call at the office next week, I'll be more than happy to do that. You're welcome, Sharon. Have a happy Easter, okay? All right. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. You can give us a call now. We're live and local, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number to be part of our show today, 877-943-9673. Or you can email me directly, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Next comes up in our child support discussion, what does it take to modify child support? So you've already got child support in place. What are the critical elements that would be required for a modification of a child support? It would be a substantial change. That is the general rule. And for income, this generally means a change of at least 10% after the initial child support case is concluded. So this is basically, you're not saying this was something that I was advocating or litigating based on when the original child support order came down. This is a new change that has developed since that order, and this can be Pandora's box. When you petition for a modification, realize that opens the gate for the other side to petition for modification potentially as well. So if you have a legal question, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, let's go to Seminole and let's talk to Doug. Doug, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Well, Doug, I appreciate that. You know, it's funny you say that because I was talking to Brian, the call screener. And by the way, we have the whole gang together today. We have Yana, the Belarusian producer, and Brian, the call screener. And I was talking to Brian about how much I appreciate the Salem team here. The studios are amazing. The production team, the executives, everyone here is amazing. I was talking about so you mentioned you're a longtime listener, my very early days. When we first started the show, it was not at the Salem studios. It was literally in an old brick building out in the middle of Lake County. And I had a pop-up table, like a lunchroom table. And that was where I broadcast from. And my producer was literally right next to me. It was a situation where when calls would come in, you could hear the phone ring, you could hear the production team answering the calls before they would get on the air. And it just harkens back. It just, when you have those early day memories, and it just helps you really appreciate where you are now. And I appreciate a long-time listener like you, Doug. Thank you for calling. Amen. It's all been the hand of God, Doug. Amen. Not legally. It's called fraud. So yeah, that's like saying, is it possible for someone to take your life? Absolutely, but it's called murder. So it is illegal, and there are these fraud scammers out there. I find that a lot of times there's some fear mongering that goes on because, you know, there are these emails that go out and there are these snail mail correspondence that go out to clients, and they say, do you have your deed? And they say, no, I don't have my deed, in their mind. And these companies offer to mail them a copy of the deed for, you know, however many bucks. And clients come in all the time with this letter and they say, well, if you don't have the deed, who does? And they make a big deal about the piece of paper. And deeds are a little bit like stock, Doug. So if you have like public stock or stock in some corporation and you burn the share of stock, do you still own those shares? Yes, absolutely. You just lost the piece of paper that said so. It's the same with deeds. So I tell my clients who come in and they have this, you know, solicitation saying, hey, we want to send you a copy of your deed for $80 or $100 or whatever they're trying to charge. I just turn around or I call my paralegal and I have them print out a copy because it's all public record. You can print out a copy of your deed today through the there are scams out there, but there are scammers on top of the scams. So they create a scam about the potential for having your property stolen from you or a mortgage taken out in your name, just to set up the opportunity to scam you again to get a copy of the deed that you already have access to free of charge. Does that make sense, Doug? It's one of those terrible situations about the world we live in. And what I tell my clients is anytime you think you're approaching a scam, you can always call me. And I'm always, and by the way, we should probably do, and that's a great idea, Doug. we should probably do a show just on scams, because I get calls all the time from clients who say, I've been told I want a prize. And then guess what? They have to pay money to get the prize. You don't pay money to win prizes. That doesn't work. That's not how that works. And if you think you're being scammed, you're always welcome to call my office. And here's a great way to test them. When you're talking to the potential scammer or the supposed scammer, tell them you're going to call your lawyer. And this is a great way to employ what I call the sonar strategy. It's where, the sonar works by not what you send out, but what bounces back. That tells you everything. So when you tell them you're going to call your attorney, read the temperature, read the room after you make that statement. 9 times out of 10, that tells you everything you need to know. Most of the time, and when it's not a scam, you'll hear something like, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to speak to your attorney. We'd be happy to fax the paperwork directly to their office. Those are usually the legitimate parties. The ones who say, well, why do you need an attorney involved? That's where your suspicion should really start to arise and the red flag should start to go off. Well, Doug, per your suggestion, we're going to put it in the queue and we're going to get to work on putting together a show dedicated to common scams throughout the state of Florida and how to address them. Thank you, Doug. Have a happy Easter. All right. Bye-bye. All right. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. You can give us a call now. We're live and local, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number. Give us a call now. Open phone lines, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Again, you can email me throughout the week or during the show, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. We've been discussing child support in between your calls today, and we've covered a lot of the public policy, what child support is used for, when does child support begin, how to calculate it, those great things. And we talked last about modifying child support and for there to be a substantial change. Next point is about enforcement. How do they enforce child support? So, well, typically it gets paid freely and voluntarily, but there are situations where it doesn't, and it can be enforced through one of the following options. Something called wage garnishment, where they just go ahead and take it directly out of your paycheck. Something called tax garnishment, which is where they take it out of your tax refund. And then the coup de grace is something called suspension of a driver's license. That'll get your attention if you're not paying your child support. So those are the most common means of enforcing child support. Maybe you have a question, feel free to give us a call, 877-943-9673. That's your toll-free number, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Next, we're going to go to Clearwater, and we're going to talk to Mike. Mike, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm great, Mike. Thanks for your patience. I appreciate that. So it's a David versus Goliath. All right, go ahead. I'm intrigued, Mike. Go ahead. It depends on the cause of act. I need a little more details. Yeah, don't say the name of the multinational corporation. I don't want to risk any trouble there. I just want to know sort of a general, like we said earlier with the caller, like a Joe Friday version of the events. Give me just the facts, sir. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's tough. Okay. So that's the short version. Are there any additional facts? Okay. Well, the attorney I would recommend you talk to is Attorney Jared Bailey. He's been on my show as a guest, and I work with Jared now. And the type of case you have is either personal injury or products liability, either of which would be within Jared's bailiwick. And you may have both. It may be both causes of action. But I'll so you're considering a small claims action. I know you said that at the start of the call, but it sounds like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you can, I believe you can, yeah, I don't know is the short answer. I would say I'll just put you in touch with Jared and have him give you, I mean, and if an attorney tells you it's not worth pursuing, it's usually not. They generally don't reject cases unless there's a good reason for rejecting it. Now, I will tell you this, you have to show sort of permanent harm in this situation. Now, you have loss of wages, and it seems to me like you've got a pretty direct correlation between, the malfunctioning device and the fact that you lost this income. Now, you said you were out 8 weeks, but you only want one back. Is that correct? Okay. So so if you combined those 8 weeks, so one set of 8 weeks is worth 10 grand, and then the second set would be 10 grand. If we added those together, that's 20. Now we're out of small claims. So I think that may be the approach. It's a worthwhile conversation to have with Jared. So just give me a call at the office next week. I'll put you in touch with Jared and see that he gives you the very best advice we can to get you some sort of resolution there. I mean, maybe a settlement or something to give you some help there, Mike. That's certainly an unfortunate situation. How are you doing now? Well, praise God for that. That's terrific news, Mike. At least there's a happy ending to the story. All right. Well, I understand, and that's certainly a frustrating surprise and detour to your year. And it sounds like you're at least physically doing better now, and I'm glad you're back at work now. That's terrific, Mike. Well, Mike, I can't tell you how much I appreciate those kind words, and you and all the other listeners out there who send the emails thanking us for doing the show. We get them all, and we appreciate you all and your support. So it's callers like you that make us want to get up and do the show every Saturday morning, Mike. So thank you for that. All right, have a great day, Mike. All righty, 877-943-9673. That's your live and local number. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. 877-943-9673. You can give us a call now. We are live. We are local. Happy to help. You can email me directly, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, or you can just give us a call, 877-943-9673. Next, let's go to Tampa. Let's talk to Earl. Earl, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm great, Earl. Happy Easter weekend to you. Well, I appreciate those kind words, Earl, and I love helping people. I love loving on people however I can. If it's giving them legal information or helping them some other way, it's my life's calling. It's what I've been called to do, and it's what I'm happy to get up and do. And I will be 100% honest with you. It's not entirely altruistic, because doing this show makes me a better lawyer, and I know that now. And it's one of the reasons why I thrive and I look forward to doing the show, because you never know what call is going to come in next. But you know this, it's always going to lead to more knowledge, and that makes you a better lawyer who can better serve his clients. Go ahead, Earl. That's accurate. So trusts are a spectrum. There are many, many different kinds of trust. The type you're alluding to is what we call a living revocable trust. And I would argue that it's the most common type we see in Florida, especially with the estate tax exemption being so high, being over $12 million now for a single person. So the primary concern here in Florida a lot of times is bypassing the probate process, which is your concern, Earl. And I think that at the end of the day, you do that by establishing the living trust and to understand how that trust avoids probate. Because at the end of the day, Earl, we have a piece of paper over here on one hand called a will, and we have another piece of paper on the other hand called a trust. They're both pieces of paper, but one goes through this long and expensive probate process and the other one doesn't. That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. To best understand that, we have to define probate. Probate is the court supervised transfer of assets from a deceased person's name to the appropriate living beneficiary. That's court supervised to ensure that the deceased person's assets are appropriately transferred. Not that family would ever disagree over that, right? The trust avoids probate by removing the deceased person's name from the equation. So what happens is you fund your assets into your living trust. Did you ever wonder, Earl, why they call it a living trust? This is why. It's a legal fiction under Florida Statute 736, our trust code, so that when you enter eternity, nothing's in a deceased person's name. It's in the name of the living trust, and therefore it's going from living trust to living beneficiaries, and therefore those assets avoid probate. That's accurate. You can list your son as the successor trustee. You would be the grantor to create the trust. There's no successor grantor. When you go, the trust transitions into administration and the distribution. Son would take over, marshal the assets, pay your creditors, file any necessary tax papers, and then distribute the funds per your wishes, but all without the probate process. Yes, sir, Earl. Yes, that's true. You can craft your own instruments. And I had a client out of the thousands of clients over the years. I think I've had two that successfully did it on their own and just brought it in for review. But if you do it on your own, I do strongly advise that you consult an attorney and have it reviewed because there's a chasm of difference between a valid trust and an optimal trust. So, did you create a trust versus did you create the best trust for your family and finances in your situation? So, I strongly recommend if you tackle it that way, make sure, Earl, you have it reviewed by a licensed Florida estate planning attorney. You're welcome, Earl. You enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend, okay? All right. Have a great day. All righty, 877-943-9673. That's your number to call in. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. 877-943-9673. 873. I want to give out some announcements here real quick. First of all, the office line, if you want to reach us during the week to schedule your complimentary consultation for any of our office locations, whether it's in the Tampa area, in the Clearwater area, over in Lake County, Claremont, the Villages, or down in Sun City Center, which, by the way, Sun City Center, we have a big seminar coming up Wednesday, 11 a.m. for the Men's Club of Sun City Center. And that will be again this Wednesday at 11 a.m. there in Sun City Center at 1910 South Pebble Beach Boulevard in Sun City, Florida. A very special hello to Vern, who's down there now, making sure we're on the air on 96.3 Sun Radio, your community. So we appreciate all you guys down there in Sun City Center and look forward to seeing everyone at the Men's Club. But to schedule for any of our office locations, the number 877-754-6764. 877-754-6764 is the office line, and you can always email us to schedule your appointment as well, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com, or give us a call now if you want to chat with us live on the air, 877-943-9673. All right, next let's go to my hometown, Winter Haven, Florida. Let's talk to Ed. Ed, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Happy to do it, Ed. Happy Resurrection Sunday to you, Ed. It's going to be laid out in the lot lease that you agreed to when you entered the park. I would have to look at the terms of the lease. I don't know is the short answer, because it's going to be governed by that particular lease with that particular landlord and leaseholder. But if you have a copy of a lease, I'll be happy to look at it. Now, I know you said it's a hypothetical, but hypothetically, if there is no lease, it would be filled in by Florida statutory law as far as whether or not they would evict them or eject them or whatever the appropriate legal action would be. A constable? In what capacity would they use the constable in? Well, you could use the deputy sheriff to enforce an eviction or an ejectment order, but you would have to go through the protocol to secure that order. It's not like you're just going to call the police and say, hey, I want this person kicked out. They're not paying their rent. The police are just going to tell you it's a civil matter. So until you go get the appropriate order, the police have nothing to enforce. Yeah, absolutely, Ed. Well, you enjoy the rest of your Easter weekend, okay? Thank you, Ed. All right, you're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, 877-943-9673, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. All right, let's stay in Polk County, and let's talk to Carla. Carla, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Happy to do it, Carla. Yes, ma'am. So here's my analogy for the pro forma online documents versus hiring an attorney. I think that it's kind of like if you were sort of just in your underwear, and let's agree that that is a naked status. If you walk into a department store and you grab sort of the first article of clothing you see and put it on, are you now clothed? Yes, you are. And that's the consensus. But do you look good? Exactly. You probably don't look good because you didn't check sizes. You didn't even check to see that you were in the appropriate section. You may be in the children's section, and you're a full-grown man wearing children's clothes now because you didn't take the time to get all that checked out. Versus if you go to your tailor and you have a private meeting with your tailor. The tailor helps you pick a fabric, looks good given your skin tones and your body build and all that kind of stuff. You pick the type of suit you want to have. You have a fitting. Now, not only are you clothed, but you look your best. I think that's the difference between pro forma documents and hiring an attorney. I think that the attorney is helping you not just get a valid document, but get the best document for you and your family. Yes, ma'am. Well, you're in Lakeland. We have an office there in Winter Haven. We'll be happy to help you. Thank you, Carla. Enjoy the rest of your Easter, okay? All right. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. Give us a call now, 877-943-9673. Again, that office number, if you want to reach us during the week, 877-754-6764 for any of the office locations. 877-754-6764 to set up your complimentary consultation, or email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Next, let's quickly go to Blaine in Northport. Blaine, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I have about 30 seconds, Blaine. Can you do it in 30 seconds? All right. It's going to be very fact and intense and specific. Give me a call at the office next week. I'll put you in touch with a family law attorney who will talk to you free of charge and get you the best answer to that question. Okay, Blaine? All right. All right. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Want to wish everyone out there a wonderful, happy, safe Easter weekend. The number to call in next week, 877-943-9673, or reach me during the week, 877-754-6764. God bless and go Gators.